Raymond, you're on.
Okay, thanks for giving me the floor. Okay, now we start with hooks which I'm going to be using. I'm going to be using grip hooks, size 10 short shank, which is a wet fly hook. That is the back hook on the fly. Then the front fly hook is a streamer, damsel hook, which is size 10. It's a long shank. So now I start to explain the material which I'm going to be using. I'm going to be using cross-cut zonga olive, which is this one. Then we are going to use mallard flanks olive, which is a very good material to use for most of our flies. Then we are going to use DAA for our head. So basically it's this fly is more like a you know that madlamino, yes, streamer. So we start with our back hook, which is the size 10 short shank. If any question, just ask before I go far. Then we put our hook on. We use olive thread. Normally when you are tying the fly, the thread is normally determined by the body of the fly. So we take our zonga strip, the cross cut, which is olive. You tie it on. Make sure it's tight, very tight, because otherwise it comes off after fishing one session. Then you say, hey, this fly is not working quite well. Now we start to wrap as we go forward to the eye of the hook.
Cross cut.
Cross cut, yes.
Thank you. So you're stroking all the fibers back?
Yes, you pull all the fibers back so that it looks nice. There we go. If I'm too fast, then say, yeah, because I'm used to it fast. Then we tie it off. Make sure all the fair looking back. If there's excess, then you just cut it off. That is our back fly. Then we take 2 mallard flanks, these 2 then you take off the excess. Make sure they are equal and they cover each other, must be 2. And we put on top.
On top, not the sides.
Yes. Then when you are tying, mostly on this type of flies, you take the stems back so that when you finish off, all the feathers are looking right at the top, and the stems can make it strong, a strong fly.
Hold them in place.
Yeah. Then you cut them off.
Just turn it sideways round so we can
Yes. Yeah, I will turn it. There's our fly. I hope it's still on position. Then we make our whip finish. I normally do with my fingers. Some do with a whip finisher. 3 to 4 times. Before I go any further, I take my zipper gap, which is this very good glue, so that I paint my fly. Put a little bit of drop. Then take your needle. I can see my needle now.
Raymond,
Yeah.
do you want a pen?
No, I'm just using. You want to give me something?
If you want a needle or a pen for that.
Yeah, I've done with my scissors. There we are. Make sure all the fur is looking at the back so that it doesn't interfere with the fly. Then you take your pliers, you cut off the back fly, from the back of the bend of the hook. Then you cut there.
Why would you do that?
Because I want to use one shank as a hook. This is just a trailing.
It's an articulated fly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's just going to
why
create
not
the-
2 hooks?
You're worried it's going to hook the fly further
No.
down in the throat.
To me, I mean, 2 hooks, 2 chances at
2 hooks and treble hooks are normally frowned upon in the catch and release fraternity.
So we put it down there. We take our next hook with the long shank streamer hook, size 10. You can use even size 8 depending where you are going to be fishing. Then you put there. Make sure it's strong, otherwise it will pluck your eye off. Then we start again as we did the first stage. We put thread throughout the whole hook so that your fly is very strong. You take your zonga cross cut, you tie it on. It's a very simple fly, but very effective.
Question, doesn't the articulated part get tied on
Also, yeah.
What about
So thanks very much for helping me.
I was just going to ask you this.
Yeah,
we're just seeing if you guys are awake.
yeah.
Charlie's away.
No, we were
Yeah.
curious whether you could put it in afterwards.
Afterwards. Okay, thank you.
Might
Then
be a
you-
new style.
Then I put my baking 20 pound just to attach my it's not going through.
What are you using?
20 pound baking.
Backing, not mono.
You can use mono, you can use baking. My eyes are getting too old, eh?
don't tell your boss that.
It's a one-way track. It will go worse. That is the bad news.
Maybe I'm used to tie during the day only.
It helps if you've got good light.
Then I tie a knot so that it doesn't come too loose, so that I can attach my fly to the second hook. There.
What did you do there?
Just a knot to,
Any knots?
yeah, any knot. This, then we tie at the bend of the hook. That's where the other hook will be, so that is with much movement. So if it's too long, you can pull it closer.
is it correct?
Yes. So it's movement like this. You cut off your excess. Then you take your zipper gap just to make it secure it. It must be straight on top of the hook shank. It must be right on top the backing, so that if you put on side, then it doesn't look nice. So you take your zonga cross cut, go back to the hook point, because normally we must start your fly on a hook point. Now we start winding as we did the first stage. Then you want everything must be facing backwards. Then you have to leave a proportion of 2/3 where you can put your head now. You cut off the zonga's cross cut, then you make sure it's very tight. You pull everything backwards. Then you take 2 feathers, 2 mallard flanks, put them together, one on top of each other. Then you take off the excess, you put right on top again. Very tight. You take your stems, bend them backwards, then you tie them tightly, and you cut them off. Then you take out this olive deer here. You cut a span of it just to make a collar heko. I normally put in a hair stacker so that they look the same, equal at the bend. Put them inside. Take off excess. Then you make a collar heko. When you are tying deer, it must be tight. Otherwise, it doesn't look nice. Take another span of deer. Then you spin it. You press it so that the head is more tight.
It's like a good best one so far.
Make sure your eyes out of the deer hair, otherwise it doesn't look nice. So you make your whip finish either use a whip finisher or your fingers. Then I make my whip finish. Now I take it off. Then I trim it to
Can you
shape.
hold it up at the base so we can see?
Too high.
Rather vast, yeah.
Or by device, okay? That's how it
You
looks
don't
like.
need to keep it on the base, but just when you trim it, just put it there.
Okay, cool. So when you are trimming, you take it off because normally you can't trim on the vise.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Just cuts it close to the tip of the vise so everyone can see on the camera, right?
yeah,
Yeah, there we go.
that's it.
Okay.
Then we trim it. You have to leave the
Are you sloping it backwards?
collar, yeah, when you are trimming, you start from the eye, going backwards.
You're making a tight middleless head.
Yeah, you make a madla head which is a bit tapered at the end. At the front, it must be nicely tight, trimmed. Are you seeing everybody? Okay, cool. Then you leave your collar heckle. I put back on the vise. There we are.
So you left a bit of a collar on the top, have you? On the top.
On the top, yeah. So now your trailing hook at the back must swing. So put it back. That is the madla.
Two questions for you.
Yeah,
The foot underneath and the gape of the hook, is that not going to interfere with the fish hooking up?
it doesn't interfere. As you can see, this hook is out like this. It doesn't interfere because it's soft material.
Okay. All right. Second, how do you fish it?
Okay, so you can obviously fish for quite a few species, including trout. Largemouth yellows would be a good one as well. There's two ways of using it. One, obviously, both on a floating line. Initially, with it being quite buoyant, you can fish it on top, just like you would on a muddler. Low light conditions, so early morning, late afternoon, up against the margins, and you can fish it very similar to you would a popper in the surf, creating quite an erratic retrieve and a splash and a disturbance on top of the water, and you get quite vicious takes. After a while of fishing it, it becomes quite neutrally buoyant. You can fish it either on a floating or an intermediate line, subsurface, just like you would on any wet fly retrieve. And very, very popular. Ryan fishes it to quite some extent. Jamie Rochester stole it from Ryan, and also it's his favorite fly to use. So very effective, creates quite a lot of disturbance, pushes a lot of water, and there's a lot of movement. So it's got all the right triggers for a really, really effective fly.
Yeah, we find also with the articulation in it, small, short little strips, and then you just leave it to pause, and it gives it that little action. So quick little strips, pause, quick little strips, pause, and generally during the pause, that's when the fish hit it.
Ray, you gave me one of these to take to the Camberg,
Yeah.
and yo, if I was a fish, I would eat it. But it's just, I mean, as soon as you stop, that whole tail and the body section almost like come over the head. So I don't know.
A lot of
Pops
movement.
up properly, yeah.
Yeah, it looks like a really big, juicy. There's a lot of obviously all that.
But you only caught one fish.
Stand up. That was that morning.
Thank you very much.
Did you use it?
I used it. So I didn't catch any on that. So sorry. My fish were hard. I promise.
Wrong colour.
Yeah, so we also, we